We just wrapped up a great interview with Mindy Templeton. She came talking about her portfolio, small yet mighty, and all the things that she's done to grow from having probably about $165,000 worth of debt into $3 million in real estate. Transition was amazing. Patrick, what did you think about today's episode?
As always, I thought today's episode was great. I'm inspired. I'm motivated. She's been able to build over $15,000 a month in passive income, plus another $10,000 a month on top of that with her wholesaling business. She's got her real estate agent business. She's got short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, so much stuff. But the best part about it is she talks about how you, if you haven't even started or have a small portfolio, can really accelerate that and build something in such a short a period of time, just like her. So if you're super excited, make sure to drop a like, drop a comment, and listen till the end because she also has some great books and inspiration ideas out there. So here it is. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the Real FI podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Rippion. How's it going today, James?
It's going away. It's going terrible, Patrick. I've been so busy, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I've got caffeine withdrawal going on. It's 4 o'clock. I haven't even had my coffee yet. Man, I've been so busy. Maybe we'll talk about some of that stuff later that I got going on. But anyways, we've got a great guest here. So let's not cover it up with the things I have going on. Mindy, welcome to the show. Why don't we get started by you telling our listeners a little bit about what you got going on and who you are?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, guys. I can definitely relate to the being busy. I've been sun up to sundown, going nonstop with kids and real estate stuff and running all my businesses. So yeah. Um, but a little background on me. So my name's Mindy. I am located in the Kansas City market. And just a quick background on me. I spent 15 years in the corporate world. I was director of business development for an insurtech company. So I'd worked my way up the corporate ladder, was making a nice six-figure salary. I thought everything was amazing. But then like I get up to the top of this ladder and I'm like, this really sucks. I don't want to be here. This is not what I thought it would be. I'm missing games. I'm missing first days of school. My salary is capped by what they're willing to pay me. And so in 2019, I got curious about finding other ways to invest. I was already, investing in my 401k. I have an HSA. My kids have college savings. So I was already like dabbling, but I was like, okay, like I want to have my cake and eat it too. So I want something that can help me retire and pay my bills today. And so all of the research led me to real estate. And so in 2019, in January, I literally made a sticky note. I put by the end of April, I'm going to buy my first rental property. And I spent 60 days or so reading books, listening to podcasts, figuring out, what do I need to do? Like, what's the right strategy? Just familiarizing myself because I had zero real estate experience. And then on March 26th of 2019, so before my goal that I had on my sticky note on my fridge, also my 36th birthday, I closed on my first rental property. I was still at my corporate job and I kept buying properties while I was working my corporate job. It became a side hustle. And and fast forward to 2021, we won't talk about 2020. That was a wild time for everyone, including me. But 2021 rolls around. I'm at four doors at that time. I had just gotten my real estate license for myself, and I was under contract for my first flip. And I got a nice Zoom call added to my work calendar, and it was HR laying me off. Um, Best Zoom call I've ever had in my life because I went from my six-figure salary and family benefits to overnight nothing. And thankful that I had my real estate skills to lean on. And I ended up my first year full time as real estate. I made more than I made in my corporate job. And I was like, all right, let's go. I'm doing this. I'm, going all in. because after I got laid off, I spent like 30 days freshening my resume, interviewing, and then I just woke up one day and I was like, I'm not going to work for someone else anymore. And I burned my resume, like figuratively, but I'm like, I'm unemployable. So I'm going all in on real estate. I kept buying. I used the BRRRR strategy, which is where you buy a house, you rehab it, you rent it out, you refinance it, and then you just repeat the process. And so in the past 4 years, I've been in real estate. I actually, right before this podcast, just went and signed paperwork for my 18th property. And then not only do I have my passive income stream, I've also in the past couple of years started some active income streams in real estate. So I do have a team of 12 investor friendly agents here in Kansas City. And I also have a wholesaling business. I also do coaching for a mastermind. And then I also have a local real estate investor meetup here in Kansas City that I bring in speakers and we just, cover all different topics, real estate investing related. So all of that kind of keeps me busy. So yeah, that's a little background on me. And I know that's a lot to unpack, but that's me.
Man, I love all of that. It's like, wow, leaving the corporate world, like getting fired from your job, being able to kind of rely on real estate and then just taking it full swing. And in less than 4 years, like being able to build not only the passive real estate, but also the active real estate, which is so awesome to go from zero to, multiple businesses and a giant portfolio. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic. So there's a ton to unpack here. I kind of want to revert back to those first four doors that you had when you got the Zoom call from HR. Like, how much cash flow were you bringing in at that time? And what did those four doors look like? Was it four single families? Was it two duplexes? Like, just so people
Yeah.
kind of have an idea, like when you got the call, where you were
Yeah.
kind
So yeah, my properties, they honestly weren't cash flowing that much. It was single family. I only have one duplex. All the rest of mine are single family. And I mainly do long term, but I've got a couple of midterm rentals and a short term rental and a workshop in there. So I'm diversified across my investing strategies. But yeah, when I got laid off, I was not at a point where my bills were covered by my passive income. I was probably bringing in 1,500 or so. It was around $300 to $400 per door cash flow at that time. But like I mentioned, I was under contract for my first flip, and that brought a profit of 70K. And then I bought five more houses that year. And so maybe it was six, sorry, because the way I explain it to people is like when I first heard about financial independence, I thought it was like this big, scary number and it was going to take this huge portfolio to be able to make it happen. And I'm more of I call it small but mighty empire, is what I like. And so I found ways to decrease expenses, both personally and in my business, and then increase my income. And it literally took 2 years and 10 houses, averaging 500 per door to cover my expenses because it takes about $5,000 to keep me alive every month. Because before all of this happened, I luckily spent about 5 or 6 years really focused on paying off consumer debt. And that's like the big piece of advice I give to newbies wanting to get into real estate. I talk a lot about using like other people's money to buy real estate because that's usually how I buy properties. But just because you use other people's money doesn't mean don't need to have your own financial house in order. So like me being able to I paid off 165,000 in consumer debt before all the real estate stuff started. I did have a little bit of student loans left when I bought that first property, but not having student loans, not having car payments, not having credit card bills, all of that, like it really, not just financially, but it's like this weight off your shoulders so that you can like be creative and think and like not have the pressure of having such high expenses every month. And that's why, like I said, 10 properties, $500 a door, like $5,000. I live very minimally. And so that gave me the trajectory that I needed to start all those businesses because I didn't have that stress on my shoulders. So
At what point did you really feel like you needed to pay off that consumer debt? Because, that's a big chunk of change to have to pay off. So at what point in your journey did you come to that realization and really start chipping away at that?
Well, I was just at a point where I was just like, I was sick of like, I was a high wage earner in my corporate job, but then I'm like, why am I living paycheck to paycheck? This is ridiculous. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And honestly, what happened for me is I had a good friend of mine. She developed terminal cancer. And so I watched her at a very young age in her early 30s. I watched her go through her end of life. And that had a really big impact on me and my values. And like, I didn't care about, having a fancy car and spending money on shoes or purses or any of that stuff. And I went a little bit crazy. All of my old friends would say, I actually did a 2-year no spend challenge. I don't know if you know anyone that's done that, but like, I didn't wear makeup. I started cutting my own hair. I stopped dyeing it. I didn't buy any shoes, clothes, purses, or anything for 2 years because I got so focused. I was like, I need like a financial cleanse here because I had gotten into consumeritis. And I was just like, this stuff isn't important to me. Like, I want to be able to go travel and go make memories and like go do fun stuff instead of having to come home every 2 weeks. They're like, all right, I'm going to give my paycheck to everyone for all of this junk that I don't even need in the first place. So it just, but like I said, watching someone go through the end of life, like that really had an impact on me and just like stopping and thinking about like, why is all of this important? It's not, you
A
know?
2-year cleanse, that's pretty impressive. I remember in college, I went about 2 weeks with trying to like spend as little money as possible, and that's about as
Mhm.
far as I made it. How did you come across that? Like, that's a pretty radical thing to try to do.
Yeah.
And in addition to telling us how you came across it, did you actually keep track of like what your actual spending over that period of time was? I'd be curious to know what your actual expenses were.
Yeah, so I heard about the cleanse on Instagram. Someone else was doing it and they challenged people to join them and they were doing a 30-day. And I'm one of those overachievers. I'm like, I'm gonna be the class cat here and I'm gonna do a year. And then after I did a year, I was like, that wasn't that bad. I'm gonna do 2 years. But yeah, so that's how I came across it. And at the time I was living on a zero-based budget, which means I literally knew where every single penny of my money that was coming in was going. And so like I paid all of my bills at the time. I honestly don't remember what they were. It's been a while back, but any extra penny I had went straight to paying all of that debt off. And like I said, it hurt, especially those student loans. Whew, those student loans were terrible for a degree I wasn't even using. Um, so anyways, yeah, that's kind of where I was living. And like now that I'm in a different spot in my life, I do value-based budgeting, which means like I have certain areas like I like me a fancy coffee and sometimes I spend $30 a week on coffee. It is what it is. Like I can do that now because I spent the time sacrificing and getting all that debt paid off. But yeah, mainly my value-based spending, I spend a lot on travel because I've traveled more in the past 18 months than I had my entire rest of my life combined. But yeah, I spend a lot on like my physical and mental health now too, that I couldn't afford to do back when I was living paycheck to paycheck and paying all those stupid debts.
That's amazing. I mean, I love hearing these stories about people that, you know, took like massive action, and you did it in multiple ways. Like you took massive action on getting your financial health in order, like, and really just going, all right, I need to pay all of this stuff off because it's going to give you peace of mind. And
Yes.
and then when you have that peace of mind and you have a big life situation happen, like being let go from your high paying W-2 job, now you only have to worry about the basics,
Yes.
gas, food, electric, housing. Other than that, you're good because you already had a big handle on your budget and you didn't have this overwhelming, crushing debt on top of you, which after those 30 days of doing those interviews and everything, gave you the freedom to go, you know what? I can figure this out. I'm going to try a different route. And if it doesn't work, I can always go back to what I was doing. But let's just give this new chapter in life a try. And I think that's so important, when we talk about the decide, commit, and take action on this podcast for everyone that's listening out there. It starts small. Like you didn't start by saying, hey, let me get this passive income and then I'll pay off the debt. You reversed it, so that just gave you more freedom to take it, to let it take a little longer, and you actually did it way faster. And
Yes.
I think that's so, so, so important. So how did you go from, 4 properties with high paying W-2 income to then buying properties with no income as a real estate, agent, because you've got no verifiable income, you're starting a new business? Like, let's get into how you were able to continue to acquire, because there's people out there making 50, 60, 70 grand a year right now that are struggling to get loans, and you were able to buy properties with basically
Yes.
no verifiable income. So let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I love when someone tells me no about money because I'm like, "Nah, you can tell me no all you want. I'm gonna find the money." But I actually, for the mastermind that I coach for, I don't know if you guys know Felipe Mejia, but it's called the Inner Circle Mastermind, and I coach for that every Wednesday night. And one of my topics was I sat down one day and I just wrote down, and there's been 17 different ways I have funded my projects. Like I said, I will take money from anywhere I can get it. So I won't like overwhelm you guys with all of it, but the main strategy I've done is private money and hard money. And then on the back end, I've done small local banks and portfolio loans. And most recently, I've been into DSCR loans because my small local bank was like, hey, we need you to do your taxes. And I haven't done them yet. But yeah, mainly that having that relationship with a small local bank was really helpful. Private money and hard money as well. Of course, the private money and hard money is on the front end to purchase it and rehab it. And then on the back end, folio loans and DSCR loans is what I've been doing.
So let's
Um,
let's dive into the DSCR a little bit, because that's something that is gaining a little bit of traction in
mhm.
recent months, maybe last 2 years. I feel like it's a product that's become more popular. So let's
Yes.
talk about that a little bit and just explain to our listeners what that is and how you put that to use with building your portfolio.
Yeah, so I always tell people, like, my advice, DSCR loan should be your last option, and you should use that once you've ran out of other options and you become complicated like me. Okay, like when you are employed and you can get those, conventional loans, go do that, please. But when you get to a point where you have as many properties as I do, lenders don't want to give you conventional loans anymore. And when you are self-employed, so the DSCR loan, so that stands for debt service coverage ratio. And essentially, breaking it down, like they're really underwriting your property more so than they are you. Like, obviously, you have to meet some minimum requirements because you have to, from an underwriting standpoint, you can't be risky. But really, as long as you buy that property right, and the monthly income is going to cover your debt service, then they will give you that loan. The last one I did, it was a 30-year note and 7.49 interest rate. So yeah, the rates are also a little bit higher. But honestly, like the underwriting process is way easier than any other loan I've done because they just ask me for a few docs and then they leave me alone. And I do like that about it because I hate doing paperwork. So
Yeah,
So
that's
when the
great. I mean,
when the
go ahead,
lender's
James.
evaluating that, are they looking at the income covering the mortgage alone, or are they also factoring in maintenance and capex and other
I'm not
expenses
even
like that?
sure. I'll be honest, I don't completely understand it, but it's something like 1.25% ratio is the minimum you have to be at for your debt service. I don't know what all they calculate in there. I'll just be honest.
Okay.
So basically, to break it down for the listeners out there, is that the debt service coverage ratio of the 1.25% of the loan means that they want the property to rent for $1,250 if the loan is $1,000 a month. So that covers 1.25%. The income is 1.25% of the debt, which would be $1,000 in that scenario. So what I'm hearing is that you're using private and hard money to get into the property. So you're buying value add distressed properties. So maybe I'm just going to put a maybe out there. So maybe you're using private money to fund your hard money deal. So that's for the down payment and paying the points. You're utilizing hard money to cover the renovations. You're getting the property up to snuff. You're putting in a tenant at market or above market rates. Then you're going to get the DSCR loan or the portfolio loan to then refinance out of your hard money and your private money. And you're doing it all with very little cash out of pocket. Is that explaining your strategy?
Yes, that's exactly how I do it. And I think so. I also have done seller financing and subject to. So I have a couple of those properties. But mainly that's exactly how I do it is for hard money for people that have not used hard money. Usually my guy, he will do 90% of purchase and 100% of rehab. And he charges 12% and usually 2 points. That's pretty standard in our market. And then for that 10% down payment, that's where I use private funding. The one I closed on today is actually my best purchase price to date. I bought it for $25,000. It does need a big rehab, which is 65,000, but that one is being covered 100% by a private lender. They came to me and were like, "Hey, we want to make a return. We don't want to do all of the work and all of that." But yeah, so they'll make 12% off of that. And then we have full freedom. We don't have to go through the draw process or have people come out or submit receipts or any of that. So I'm excited to have 100% private funding. And then, like I said, they get a return too. So it's mutually beneficial.
Where are you finding these private money lenders? Are these people you're just cold calling out of the blue, or sending like mass emails out to, or do you have some sort of personal relationship with the people who are kind of funding these deals for you?
So, the power of social media, to be honest, like I have a presence on social media. I've been growing my audience for 4 years. So I started my Instagram before I even bought a property. And I initially was talking about debt payoff and all of that. And then I rebranded once I switched to real estate specific material. But yeah, I have a link on my Instagram where you can, apply to get more information about funding opportunities that we have. And that's where a lot of them come from. And then the other ones that I've used in the past have also been just my sphere. Like I am really active. I honestly don't know how I find time to do all of this, but I'm in like a run club, I'm in a book club. I am just always out there. And I say my toxic trait is I can turn any conversation into real estate. So I'm always talking about what I do. And like, I'm genuinely like very passionate about it. And I think people see that. And I have credibility because I share all of my projects and updates. And so people are like, "Oh, Mindy's out here doing this." So there's that trust already with becoming a private lender for me because I am so active with social media and then within my personal sphere also.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I really think that the listeners need to kind of rewind that and hit home with it, because it's putting yourself out there before you're actually doing things. It's putting yourself out there when you're going through these projects, when you're doing your first one or two or your third deal. Just putting yourself out there, because people are watching, whether that's family, friends, or their network, or people somewhere else in the United States. And when you put yourself out there and you have that trust, people are going to want to somehow be a part of that. And that could be just funding your deals. And
Yeah.
we've heard it over and over and over again, the power of social media from everybody that we've had on here. So I think that's extremely important. I definitely wanted to hit home on that. So now that we're here, so we know how you're funding your deals now. We know how you kind of funded them along the way in the different projects that you have, 18 single family, homes, or 17 in one duplex. So what does that overall portfolio look like of those 18 single family homes? Can you give us like an overall value and kind of like what the cash flow is on something like that if they're all kind of relatively the same?
Yeah. So I just went through a refi and like I can't give you exact numbers because like I said, paperwork is my like lowest. Like I'm a salesperson and I'm out like networking, like those are my strong suits, but like getting nitty gritty with my numbers, I just have to give you like an average here. But
Yeah,
so yeah, the portfolio itself, I want to say it's around 3 million now from those 18 properties. And keep in mind, 4 years ago, that was zero. It's still mind blowing to me.
exactly.
And then the monthly cash flow, I honestly, it's hard because I also have midterms and a short term, so like it fluctuates. But I think I'm close to the 15,000 or so range now per month after my expenses.
That's absolutely amazing. And what would you say the average debt on that is? Is that 70%, 75, 80? Like just to kind of give the
Yeah,
listener an idea.
most of mine are 70, and then I have a couple at 75. And then my seller finance duplex that I have, which is my best cash flowing property, that one is like 50%, maybe 40 even, because I bought it right.
So that's amazing. So I just want to recap here. So in 4 years, you've acquired around $3 million worth of real estate. You're cash flowing roughly around $15,000 a month, which is net. And you have around 30% equity in all these properties, which is almost $1 million.
Hmm.
So a million net worth, 15,000 a month, and you have $3 million in assets in 4 years. You went from zero to that in 4 years, which is absolutely amazing. And I always love to preface is that 15K a month is in real estate cash flow. So that really means that you're roughly doing what someone else would need to do at like a $250,000 a year job to be able to kind
Yeah.
of net what you're making. So you would need to be a $250,000 W-2 employee to be able to, kind of net what you're bringing in, what you created with hard work, sweat,
Yeah.
and tears over the last 4 years. So that's fantastic. James, what do you think about this?
I think that's pretty amazing. I mean, you've established for yourself such a great cushion in contrast to where you came from. It's really mind blowing, and I kind of want to know, like, how does this make you feel to have put in place? Like, what do you think about when you look back over the journey that you've made and where you are today?
I still like wake up and I'm like, is this real life? Have you seen that video of the kid? Is this real life? I do that because like we didn't talk about my upbringing or anything, but I grew up poor. Like we were on government benefits. I lived in a trailer. Like I came from literally nothing. And I never thought that someone like me could be wealthy or a millionaire. Like, I didn't think that was within my reach 4 years ago. Like, I didn't know that that could happen for me. And like, I get goosebumps thinking about it because, like, I always tell people the reason I share and do my networking events and everything is like once you find out a power and a secret like that, you have to share it with other people. Like it's the right thing to do. Like there's so many people that grew up with similar backgrounds to mine that have no idea what they're capable of because they haven't been exposed to it. Like I I literally grew up thinking you got a good job, you worked until you were 65, you took a couple weeks off, you were thankful for the, good benefits and paycheck that you received. I didn't know there was another way. And I hit the game a little bit late. Like I said, I was 35 when I started researching and 36 when I bought my first property. And like anyone can do this at any point in their lives. You can wake up and decide, today I am going to change my life. And like when I put my mind to something, like I go 0 to 100 real quick. And a lot of people are like, I don't know how you do it, Mindy. I don't know how you do it every day. Because I also have my active income businesses. But again, like some days I work more than I did in my corporate job, but it doesn't feel like work. Like I think with financial independence, a lot of people don't talk about is like when you get to a point where you have financial independence, like what are you going to do all day? Yeah, it's everyone, all the influencers on Instagram talk about how you're going to go travel and, do whatever you want. But like I still have to have a purpose and some sort of like contribution. You know what I mean? And so um, I just love that there's so many ways within real estate to be able to also spend your time freedom once you have reached that point from your hard work. So that's something that I don't think people talk about enough. Like, what are you going to do when you hit five?
Exactly. No, you're 1,000% correct. And I think the reason why most people envision like chilling on the beach or relaxing and not working is because their mind can't comprehend even
Mhm.
reaching it. So they want it to be this beautiful, like just far out thing, oh, I've got a
Right.
Corvette and, I go to dinner every night and we travel first class and all this stuff. But then, you know, once you get that time freedom, like you said, you need to have a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think most people in the beginning think their purpose is to get to financial freedom or is to make $1 million. And that's their purpose, to provide for their family and everything, and don't get past the thinking because they don't honestly believe that it is possible and true. And then once you hit that, and once you're sitting on the couch, and once you're going out to eat, and once you're going and traveling, you're like, okay, well, this is cool, but I also need to do something else. And that's when you get
Yeah.
into these other things. Like, I kind of want to dive into some of these other
Yeah.
businesses and how they kind of came about. Was it through a necessity? Was it through you know, thinking that you were leaving money on the table somewhere? Or was it like, hey, I can be doing more, so why don't I do more?
Right. And so I will start also by saying, like, when I talk to newbies or people that are wanting to scale, like, you have to find your one thing and focus on that. Like, just because I'm sitting here telling you I do 15 things, please don't be like me and go do that. Like, focus on your one thing, get that going. Like, for me, that was buy and hold long-term rentals, boring old long-term rentals. And once I got to a certain point, then I was like, okay, now I'm going to sprinkle in an Airbnb. Now I'm going to try a couple midterms. Now I'm going to get my real estate license. And honestly, I got my real estate license initially just because I was sick of waiting for people to get me into properties or pull comps for me. So that was my initial thought. And then I immediately exploded with people like, I want to work with you. I want to work with you. And so I started working with a lot of out of state clients mainly that heard Kansas City is a great market to invest in. And I got to a point where I couldn't keep up with it. And so I found some hungry agents and started training them up and built my agent team. And the wholesaling business was actually, I'm an accidental wholesaler. I mentioned I'm very active and I always talk about real estate. And I had someone in one of my clubs brought me a lead for an off market deal. I went and looked at it and I was like, okay, this isn't an area that I'm familiar with. I don't buy here, but I just got it under contract. I was like, I'm going to get it under contract. I've heard about wholesaling. I was like, I'll figure this out. So I get it under contract and I call another investor and I'm like, hey, do you buy in this zip code? And he's like, yeah. So I sent him my Dropbox link of pictures. I sent him the description, the work that was needed. I said, how much would you pay for this one? And I had it under contract at 70. And he was like, I'll give you 83 and I can close in 2 weeks. And I was like, as soon as I did that, I was like, dang, I want to do that again. 13,000 for like an hours of work. Like this is amazing. Um, and so yeah, I realized quickly though, like I got a few of those from my sphere, and then I was like, okay, to really go all in for this, I need to make it an actual business. And so I hired a cold caller. I really started working it, but to wholesale, my main goal was not to wholesale with these off-market leads. I was going to keep the best for my personal portfolio. And then the stuff that's in areas that I don't buy or is like full gut rehab, for example, I don't do that stuff. So those are the contracts that I end up assigning. And I actually ended up a year ago, I found two business partners that are really good at systems and processes because we talked about this, not my strength. So I partnered up with them. And so the last three properties are with business partners, and my wholesaling business is with them. But again, we all have our different strengths we bring to the partnership, and it's allowed us to like explode with the wholesaling business and holding properties, and we're flipping too. I forgot to mention I do flips.
Yeah, it's easy to lose it in all the things you've got going on. But I think that's the amazing thing about you is that you've got all these things going on and you're executing, scaling, and you're building systems. And I think a lot of people fall into the trap of wanting to follow through with these things that look bright and shiny, but they ended up taking it all on themselves and trying to do all the work themselves, and they don't build that business. Let's talk about the wholesaling business a little bit. What kind of revenue, what kind of numbers, what kind of deals are you doing? Like, let's talk about some of the details there.
I wish my business partners were on so they could tell you. Um, but so yeah, so we started buying and holding this year. So we bought three properties since January that did the BRRRR strategy. One of them we actually BRRRRed and flipped. And what I mean by that is we BRRRRed it, we got all of our money back to pay off our hard money, and then we made $27,000 and it still cash flows. Like that is insane. Like I don't think people realize you could do that if you buy a property right and you renovate it right and you know your market and your after repair values. So that's one deal. We're under contract on our third flip right now. And from a revenue standpoint in the wholesaling portion of it, we've had close to 100K month. That's been our best month. But on average, we're more in like the 40 to 60,000 range per month. And we do have expenses because we've got virtual assistants, we've got systems that we have to pay for. So I think our overhead right now with marketing and our VAs and everything is like in the $8,000 to $10,000 range a month. So
That's insane though. So, you created this business out of, you saw an opportunity by someone sending you over a lead and you were like, hey, I can figure this out. You didn't go out thinking you were going to build a wholesaling business. You took an opportunity and you said, hey, if someone else can do this, I can figure this out. And you saw it and were like, hey, this is great. You did it a couple of times. You found some people to help you out. Now you say your average month is netting 30K. Like if you're doing $40,000 a month and you have $10,000 in expenses, your just average old month is 30,000. So if it's you and two partners, you got 10 grand a month flowing in from a business that you kind of built out of necessity, out of an opportunity. And I think sometimes people don't understand that is when we're talking to someone like yourself who's got 4 or 5 different businesses. You didn't set out to build 4 or 5 different businesses.
No.
It set out because of an opportunity that arose that you just took on because you already had your foundation in place. You already had your knowledge. You already had some of these things. And then once you're doing that, opportunities just start kind of coming to you. And it's whether you decide if you can take them on. And then when you take them on, you're like, hey, I can fit this in with everything else that I have going on. And you kind of create this business out of necessity of not letting these opportunities kind of go by. Is that kind of how it was all created and all of that?
Yeah. And like I'm really big about mindset and abundance and like, putting things out into the universe. And like I do attract a lot of opportunities because I'm always open to them. And anytime I see a problem, I'm like, I'm a problem solver. That's literally what real estate is. Like, and for me, I feel, again, starting as a buy and hold investor gives me such a leg up from other real estate agents or wholesalers because most of them don't own any properties. And I do. And so I have a leg up over the competition because I know what the numbers need to look like. And don't send out shit deals. Like I get those all the time in my inbox and I'm like, take me off your list. Like if this is what you're sending out, we're not going to be working together. Same on the agent side, like being an investor friendly agent. There aren't enough of those out there. But yeah, I saw opportunities and I jumped on it because they all go hand in hand. Like for my portfolio, you think being an agent and a wholesaler doesn't help contribute and feed my portfolio? It sure does. And then just from like a personal like fulfillment standpoint, I mentioned like part of my why and reason I love this is because I like to share it with other people. And it's like I can do this, other people can do this. I get to help and make money. Like how cool is that? So
Well, I think that's awesome. You've put together this spoken wheel kind of system, and that I always like to envision like these vertically integrated businesses, and that's kind of what you got going on here. Next thing you need to do is a property management business, maybe.
hey, so already done.
Well, there you go.
Um, as of last week, so I personally am not. I do self-manage my portfolio, except my short terms and midterms. I hired that out. But my investor-friendly agent team, all of the agents on my team, they're badasses and they all are investors or have other businesses within real estate, very similar to me. And that's why they were attracted to my team. And I have a hustler on my team. She started with just a midterm rental management company and she just added she does a couple of short terms too. Short terms are kind of a sticky topic in Kansas City because they were just banned last month, but yeah, she's starting long term as well, so she just announced that last week. So when I'm at a point when I'm ready to lose control of my um, long-term rentals that I'm managing, I'm passing those off to her all day.
There you go. I like it. Look, you said something I want to kind of cue in on. So the city you're in, they banned short-term rentals. Talk about what led up to that. Talk about like the ramifications, like how are other investors in the market reacting? Like that's a pretty
Yeah.
strong response to this industry. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, they've been talking about it for a while, and they being the city of Kansas City. So to be clear, it's banned in Kansas City, Missouri only. So you can still go out into the suburbs of Kansas City and you can do short-term rentals there. But within Kansas City, if you didn't have your permit already approved prior to them banning it last month, like if you were in the application process or you're like, we have clients under contract that were planning to short term, like they just no more stopped it. And the good thing though is because I'm an investor and I have that background, I train all of my agents and any clients I work with. I'm like, we're not buying a property unless it works as a long-term rental. Okay. The numbers have to make sense because what's happening now is there's some beautiful old houses here in Kansas City that are like large properties, $500,000 properties, and they only work as short-term rentals. Okay. So you're seeing those go up on the market right now. They're selling. We're seeing a lot of furnished rentals going up on the market. But the main strategy most people are doing is this is what I'm doing because I have an unpermitted short-term rental. Don't turn me in. But because they literally said that like you could spend 30 days in jail. Like it's insane. Um, and there are some investors that have started suit against them. So, anyways, it'll go back and forth for a while, but most people are converting to a midterm rental. So it just has to go to a 30 plus day stay. And that's what I'm doing with mine. Which stinks because mine is right by where Patrick Mahomes plays. And like it's the perfect spot for families coming in to watch football or baseball. And there's not any hotels or any other options like right there. So I'm like, you guys are hurting people coming into Kansas City, but whatever. I'll make it a 30 plus day stay. So got to
You know
be
what
able
it
to
is?
pivot
It's
when,
the hotel lobbies. Like the hotels are probably pressing on the city councils to get rid of
yeah,
Airbnbs. I think it's
oh,
that
sure.
push and shove element.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
it's also the housing authorities that are saying that, you know, uh
Affordable
that
housing.
affordable housing is being taken off the market because they're being turned into Airbnbs. And it's like, look, that's not the case. Okay. The apartments, majority of the apartments that people are Airbnb are on the higher end and they're not in the affordable category
Right.
anyways. So you're not it's basically just to show that, hey, we did something. We banned these
Yeah.
rich investors, these real estate investors, and we're actually helping some way. So they're trying to
Right.
get a win and check the box. And it's unfortunate that, sometimes they take that out on people that own personal property, and they try to regulate personal property and what you're able to do with your own property, which is really unfortunate. So
Yeah.
look, we've went over a lot of different things and with your different businesses. So let's kind of get into your goals a little bit. Like, we've seen what you've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years, and it's a lot. So like,
Yeah.
what goals do you have, with your portfolio? Is it to grow it, with your wholesaling business? Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so people are always surprised by my answer to this, but I always just say I'm going to keep doing real estate till it's not fun anymore. And honestly, from like a goal standpoint, my goal is to not start any more businesses because it's like as soon as I get to a point where, I have things up and running, it's going well, then I'm like, oh, I've got an extra hour. What kind of business can I start today? And I'm at a point where I like all of my businesses that I have, and I don't want to have to continue to hustle and grind because even in a leadership position, you still have to oversee everything, right? And when there's fires, you're the one that they come to. And so honestly, my goal is to slow down and start living a little bit more. I struggle with that a lot. So it's something I'm working on. I want to spend a little bit more time hanging out with my kids. I want to spend a little bit more time taking care of my physical and mental health and just learning how to just sit here and just be. Like I've struggled with that since I was a kid, just being honest. Like that's why I'm always going 100 miles per hour. It's who I am. I'm wired that way. So I want to slow down. Um, as far as like growing my portfolio, like I don't even care about a door count anymore. Like it doesn't impress me when someone tells me they have hundreds of units. I could care less. Like again, I would rather have a small and mighty portfolio. Um, I will continue to buy because I I do like real estate and I love seeing a good project from start to finish. But personally, I'll probably only buy a couple more a year with my partnership. We'll probably stick around 5 doors or so because that's manageable, right? Like I don't want it. I had a point last year where I had like 5 projects at one time and it was miserable. And I don't want to do that again. And I've already scaled, I've already done my hustling phase. So I just want to like live. And I think a lot of that will evolve into more that I can provide to the real estate investor community. Like I can do more with my meetups here in Kansas City. I can do more with my social media content. I've got a couple of book ideas. Like I would love to have that freedom to just stop and think about that instead of checking on 5 projects at one time. So that's me.
I think that's great. Everyone's got to find a balance, and you're at that
Mhm.
phase where you can hustle and go and build, and in the near future, be in a spot where you can kind of pick and choose what you want to focus on,
Yes.
scale and grow that, and apply
Yep.
that time to those areas of life that are really important to you. But I do have a question for you. For those new investors that are looking to get started, maybe follow in your footsteps, what would be your suggestion or recommendation for the first place that they should start to kind of build what you've started to build yourself?
So yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, like that sticky note, like it's so simple and basic to just have a written goal. Like there's so many studies about this. Write a freaking goal and it needs to be whatever the SMART goal or whatever, like you have to be very detailed, set a timeline, like your deadline, put it somewhere where you see it every day and look at that. And then set your, like, let's say you want to spend 90 days educating yourself, do that, but then start getting that hands-on experience. I've seen too many people become lifetime learners and never doers. And it's like, that's got to be exhausting to just keep talking about it and then not taking it and applying it and building your wealth and starting that passive income. So that's really like the biggest advice I can give. And then the one thing that I obviously I regret not starting earlier in life, because, a lot of people are starting in their 20s or early 30s, and I was 36 when I started. So house hacking, like that was the one thing I didn't do. And had I house hacked, like I could have paid off those student loans so much faster because I didn't have that giant mortgage payment while I was paying a basically another mortgage payment in student loans every month. Like those things, again, decreasing your expenses and increasing your income, like that can help you get so far ahead so quick. Yeah, I don't, that was a lot.
No, I think that's home run advice, like absolutely home run advice. And personal story here to kind of co-sign on that was I had a goal of buying my first rental property by the time I was 30. Like that was always the goal. I mean, I was reading books and listening to podcasts and everything, probably starting around like 25, 26, and it was always like, I'm gonna have one by the time I'm 30. And like it my birthday's in June, so it's this month, and we closed on our first property in April. So it was 2 months before my 30th birthday is when we
Yay.
actually closed on the property. So I 100% agree with that. Your sticky note thing, or write out your goals. I got to a point where I was writing out my goals on a quarterly basis, on
Mhm.
how many letters I'm going to send out, how many phone calls I'm going to make, how many meetups I'm going to go to, podcasts I'm going to listen to, books I'm going to read, people I'm going to start putting into my sphere of influence. And that's really what propelled, us to where we are today. So I 100% agree with that wholeheartedly. Like, get your SMART goal, put that out there, put that timeline onto it, and then work backwards 1,000%. And I couldn't agree with you more on house hacking. Like I'm telling
Yes.
everybody, when I'm at Home Depot and the guy's asking me why I'm in there again for, the 30th 5-gallon bucket of the same paint, I'm like, oh, I own real estate. And they're like, oh, I want to get into that. What do you recommend? I'm like, house hack. Like, trust me. Like, don't buy a
Yes.
duplex, buy a triplex or a quadplex, crush it, do it 2 or 3 times. You'll have a 12-unit portfolio and never have to work again, and then you can go buy your house. Like that, those two pieces of advice, I think majority of people are going to say over and over and over again. And for those listening right now, it's because it works.
Yes. And here's one other thing I'll add to that. So like I said, I'm big about like manifesting things into my life, but I had read about this where you like write a check to yourself like at the beginning of the year. And so I did this last year and my goal was $250,000. Do you guys think I made $250,000 last year? Hell yeah, I did. Because I wrote it and I carried this crinkled check up in my purse. And then I also, I need to rewrite this because I've evolved as a person, but my why, I had it folded up. I had my check and my why in my purse, carrying it around with me. Like, because on those days where, the contractor doesn't show up or you get a maintenance call of, something broke, whatever, like shit's gonna get hard. You got to have like your why to keep you focused through all of that. Or you're gonna give up. Like it can get hard in this journey. Especially as you start growing as a human too. Like you might start seeing yourself drifting away from old friends and starting new connections, and it can get lonely. So having a strong why, carrying it around with you, like that's another thing that really has helped me.
I love that. And it's more than just thinking about it and saying it to yourself. You're making it physical, you're making it real,
Yes.
and you're putting it in between you and your daily actions by just having it in your purse. You're going to see it, think about it. You might not read it every day, but it's going to click and you're going to think like, shit, I really got to be doing something that's going to get me closer to
Yeah.
this goal that I'm holding myself accountable to. And I think that check idea is fantastic. I've heard about other people doing that. I think
Yeah.
Jim Carrey might have done it with like,
Yes, I saw it on Instagram or something and it was Jim Carrey's story and I was like, I'm stealing that. I'm doing that.
yeah, we don't got to reinvent the wheel here, guys. Like, do what works. Like, do what is going to motivate you, and that's a great hack or tip for getting your ass off the couch and going to do great things. So I love
Yeah.
that story. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we can't beat a dead horse here, but absolutely perfect. And it works. It works if you work it and if you do it. I mean, people wouldn't be repeating the same things over and over again if they didn't actually work. So my question is, what is the synopsis of the why? There's a whole page there. Can you break down a little bit of what motivates you and what's the why behind building this business and writing that $250,000 check?
Well, so a lot for me, my why, obviously I'm a mom, so I want my kids to see that I worked my ass off for them, but also like to benefit from all of the work I put in. And that doesn't mean they're just going to inherit my portfolio because I'm not that kind of a mom. I want them to like learn and see there's other ways than just going to college, getting a desk job, working till you're 65. So it's really my kids, obviously, but the other piece is, as you guys know, real estate is a male-dominated industry, and I attract a lot of women who are like, I want to start building wealth. And I love seeing another woman coming and being like, I want to get into the industry. And so I love supporting other women that want to start building wealth for their families. And just anyone really that has, like the background I had growing up, where it's like, just because you came from nothing, that doesn't have to be the end of your story. So just motivating, inspiring, encouraging, supporting other people along their journey. And for me to do that, I need to be successful as an investor. And so that's what I'm working on every day is like being a good role model to other human beings.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Well, you're doing an absolutely great job because I know I'm feeling extremely motivated and inspired right now. I'm like, dang, I got to write my check out. I haven't done
Yep.
that. Like, I got to start keeping my why in my back pockets. So I'm looking at it. So when I'm pulling out my card to go pay for something, it just falls out. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I definitely have to do that. So that's one thing I'm going to take action from our conversation. And I think a lot of our
Awesome.
listeners out there are going to start deciding, committing, and taking action as well. And right now, I think this is an absolutely perfect segue into our next segment of the show that James and I like to call the
The
Big
big
Four.
four.
James, take it away, sir.
All right, Mindy, I want you to tell us something that you've done in the past that is a financial independence hack or cheat code, something that really helped you propel yourself to where you are today.
A financial hack that I've done. Um, Honestly, I feel like we've covered so many of my hacks. Really, it's getting into real estate as early as you can and letting time do its thing. And yeah, I regret not buying real estate sooner than I did. And realizing like with real estate, you don't necessarily have to have money to buy real estate. You don't have to have experience. Like we talked a lot about, reading, listening to podcasts, but getting that hands-on experience. Like that's so important. I would not be where I am if I didn't jump in before I was ready, and start buying real estate. Like I honestly wish I would have started buying real estate instead of investing in my 401k back in the day. Um, in retrospect, it's too late now, but yeah, buy real estate, buy and hold real estate, make that your one thing right off the bat. Like, don't get distracted by all the shiny objects. Buy and hold real estate.
I like it.
I think that's a perfect hack because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this right now that haven't jumped in. And you said you weren't ready, which none of us were
No,
ready when we went
I'm
out and
still
bought
not.
our first one. I feel the same way. I feel the imposter syndrome just
Yeah.
floating off of me all the time. But you know what? It's working. So let's just keep going. So, number two, we call this one resources. So, are there any particular books, podcasts, or people that inspired you and shaped your financial independence journey that our listeners might not know of that made an
Yes.
impact on you?
Got some really good ones. So, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. If you guys haven't read that one, it makes you think so hard about your life energy and the time you're spending and where like there's some really great examples in there that she gave that I listened to this on audiobook as I was driving my 30-minute commute to my corporate job. And like it would blow my mind every time in that 30-minute commute. I would be like, I hadn't thought of it like that. And I started valuing my time and my life energy so much more after reading that book. So Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. And then a couple others that I literally read at least once a year is You Are a Badass and You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And by read, I listen to them on audio and I do them at 1.75 speed because if you can't tell, I go 100 miles per hour. But those are great mindset books to like just remind you that you can do anything in life and that you can make money. So yeah, those are a couple I have on repeat because they're quick reads and they just remind me. Like if I start to get in a funk, I'm like, all right, let's play You Are a Badass and let's go. Like you got this, Mindy. So
I love that. I love that. And I have not checked out those books. So we're going to add those to the list
they're all
for
good.
sure. James, number 3.
All right, Mindy, it's the future you, 5 years in the future. Where are you at? What's your personal life look like? What does your business look like?
Oh boy, 5 years in the future. I mean, I have a kid out of the house because I have one starting high school. That's crazy. So I have one kid left at home. Maybe the other one's still here. We'll see. Um, I honestly, I've been slowly working up. Last year I set a goal of 30 days of travel and I crushed that. And then this year I lost track because I've traveled so much. But I think I'm probably closer to like 45 days and we're only in June because I went on some big crazy trips. Like I hiked the W Trek in Patagonia, which is a 50-mile hike, with 30 pounds on my backpack and I did it with a dozen other real estate investors. Amazing time. So
Did you go with Sarah, by the way?
yes, yeah. So Sarah she's actually from the Kansas City area, and I've gone to two of her trips now with Invested Adventures. If anyone wants to check out Sarah Weaver, I highly recommend her trips. But so I did her Guatemala co-working trip last summer, and then the W Trek in Patagonia was in February of this year. And yeah, had a blast. I've made so many friends from those and like challenged myself. Like I love finding a new challenge and just going after it. So yeah, that's where I'll be in 5 years is like just picking a challenge here or there, traveling. I do see myself probably a bit more removed from my businesses at that point. No more businesses. And I'm saying that to myself as a reminder. Um, and really, honestly, I've been exploring like what hobbies or passions. Like, I just want to start trying things. Like, I just talked with a girlfriend of mine about like trying a cooking class or pottery class. Like, I just want to explore and live. Like, I've spent so many years hustling and working my ass off. I want to enjoy it. So, in 5 years, that's what I will be doing. I'm sure there will still be real estate stuff going on, but um, not at the scale I'm doing today. My goal is in the next 2 to 3 years to really kind of one day everyone's gonna wake up and be like, "What happened to that Mindy chick?" I'm just gonna like disappear.
Ghosted everybody. Yeah, do it until
Yeah.
it's no longer fun. I think that's
Yeah.
totally reasonable. And for anybody who's listening now, curious, the episode with Sarah is episode 54. So go ahead and scroll back, go listen to that one. The Homeless Entrepreneur with Sarah Weaver. Fantastic episode. She lives quite an amazing life, and the things that she's
Yes.
doing are pretty cool. So you don't want to miss out on that.
Not at all. Not at all. And our last question, which is one of the most important questions, is for our listeners out there that are inspired, that are motivated, that want to follow along on your journey, want to reach out to you directly. Where is the best place for them to reach out?
So I spend most of my time on Instagram from a social media standpoint. So yeah, my handle is investing in your wealth. So you can give me a follow there. And I do have a link tree that tells you more about like if you want to work with my agent team as like a buyer or if you have a listing or whatever. I have private lending opportunities there. I have information about my monthly meetup that I do. So yeah, Instagram at Investing in Your Wealth is the best place to find me.
Love it, love it, love it. All right, you guys know the drill. This podcast is free. This information is free, but not quite. All we ask of you to do is simply click that like button, drop a comment down below, leave us a review. Have you even done that yet? We have 71 reviews now. We're trying to get to 100. It would make us so extremely happy if you could help us out. Google, Spotify, Apple, anywhere at all that you could leave a review, please do. You can even leave a review on our website, therealfi.com. And we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.